What difficult truths, the sooner you accept them, the better your life will be. Story 1. When it comes to accepting hard truths, the notion that not everyone will like you is a big one. This is something I had to learn the hard way in college. I was once part of a project group and thought everything was going smoothly. Then, out of nowhere, the group kicked me out a week before the due date. I was shocked and confused until one member privately told me that another person in the group who was quite popular had demanded my removal. The others just went along with it to avoid conflict. Despite this setback, I decided to finish the project on my own and submitted it separately. In the end, I received an A, while the group ended up with a C+. It was a tough pill to swallow at first, but it taught me a valuable lesson. You can't make everyone happy, and sometimes people's dislike for you has more to do with them than with anything you did wrong. Learning to accept that some people just won't like you, regardless of how you act, is freeing. It allows you to focus on being yourself and finding people who do appreciate you for who you are. Story 2. Another difficult truth that took me a while to accept is that some friendships simply end, even without a clear reason. A few years ago, I had a friend with whom I shared 2 decades of history. One day, out of the blue, she sent me a cryptic message saying we were no longer on the same emotional level. I was completely blindsided. Up until that moment, we were making plans and laughing like usual. When I asked for an explanation, she didn't respond. It felt cruel and unnecessary. For weeks, I obsessed over what I might have done to upset her. It was only later that I realized people change, and sometimes they outgrow the relationships they once cherished. It's not always about you or something you did. Sometimes it's just a part of life. Learning to let go and move on is essential, even when you don't have all the answers. People come and go, and that's okay. You have to focus on the people who remain and who genuinely care about you. Story 3. Accepting that you can be the villain in someone else's story, even when you have the best intentions, is another tough realization. I once tried to help an old friend who was going through a rough patch. He had just gone through a breakup and was feeling lonely, so I made it my mission to be there for him. I offered my time, support, and a listening ear, hoping to make him feel less alone. Months went by, and I thought I was making a positive impact. Then one day, he suddenly ghosted me. Confused, I reached out to one of his other friends, only to find out that he had been telling people I was trying to make our friendship into something romantic. I was baffled and hurt. All I wanted to do was help, but in his narrative, I was the overbearing friend who couldn't take a hint. It was a harsh reminder that no matter how pure your intentions are, you might still end up being the bad guy in someone's story. Story 4. One of the hardest truths I've had to accept is that sometimes, no matter how much effort you put into helping someone, they might not want to be helped. I had a close friend who constantly complained about the same issues in their life for almost a decade. It was exhausting, but I genuinely wanted to help. I spent countless hours giving advice, researching solutions, and offering support. But every time I suggested something, they would immediately dismiss it or come up with reasons why it wouldn't work. After years of this cycle, I realized they didn't actually want to solve their problems. They just wanted to complain. They were more comfortable staying in their misery than taking steps to improve their situation. Accepting this truth was tough, but it saved me a lot of frustration. It made me realize that you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. You have to focus your energy on people who are willing to put in the effort to help themselves. Story 5. Another difficult realization came when I understood that not every good deed is appreciated or rewarded. There was a time at my workplace when I went out of my way to help a coworker. They were struggling with a project, and I offered my time and knowledge to assist them. I stayed late, put in extra hours, and made sure everything was perfect. However, instead of thanking me, they took all the credit for the work and acted as if I hadn't contributed at all. It was a slap in the face. I felt used and unappreciated. It was then that I learned a harsh truth. Just because you do something good doesn't mean people will recognize or value it. Sometimes people are more concerned with their own success than acknowledging the help they receive. This taught me to be more selective with my efforts and to do good deeds without expecting anything in return. It's not about recognition. It's about knowing you did the right thing, even if no one else sees it. Story 6. It's a bitter truth to accept that life is inherently unfair, and sometimes there's nothing you can do to change it. I used to believe that if you worked hard and did everything right, things would go your way, but life has shown me time and time again that this is not always the case. I had a friend who was one of the hardest workers I knew. He always went above and beyond, never complained, and was genuinely a good person. Despite all his efforts, he was let go from his job job due to company downsizing. It was a huge blow to him and to everyone who knew him. It didn't matter how good he was at his job or how much he contributed to the company. The decision was out of his hands, and it made me realize that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, things won't work out the way you want them to. Accepting this truth has helped me cope with disappointments better. It taught me that while you should always strive to do your best, you also need to understand that some things are simply beyond your control. Story 7. In life, there's an inherent risk in trying something new, especially when it involves giving up a steady income. Many people are deterred by the fear of instability, but what if that fear was removed? One user spoke about the thrilling idea of constantly switching jobs to explore different career paths. They imagined trying out a range of roles, from being a programmer one day to a librarian the next, even fantasizing about piloting a plane or running a bustling kitchen. The allure of learning and growing through diverse experiences was too appealing to stick with just one job for too long. This mindset highlights the excitement and fulfillment that can come from embracing change and the unknown. For many, the idea of living in a world where you could do any job without worrying about pay is a liberating thought. It opens up the possibility of truly exploring one's passions without the constraints of financial security holding them back. Story 8. One user shared how being a janitor was one of the best jobs they ever had. It was a night shift in an office building where they worked after hours and had no one around. They didn't even have to clean the restrooms, which was a bonus. With their headphones on and music blasting, they casually went about cleaning offices. There was something uniquely peaceful about the solitude, the freedom to think, and the lack of pressure. They contrasted this with their current role as a software engineer, a job that many would consider more prestigious. Despite the higher pay, the mental exhaustion and long hours spent sitting had taken a toll on their health and creativity. The simplicity and low-stress environment of being a janitor offered a stark reminder of how sometimes less demanding jobs can bring more satisfaction and well-being. Story 9. Another commenter brought up the importance of social connections in our happiness, noting how even in places with poverty, a strong sense of community can make people feel fantastic. They shared a conversation with a Brazilian man living in Germany who remarked on how everyone in the country seemed stressed and overly focused on work. He contrasted this with his memories of Brazil, where life was tougher and less secure, but people seemed happier and more connected. The man expressed his desire to eventually return to Brazil for the sense of community and happiness he missed. It's a reminder that while financial stability and safety are important, they aren't the only factors that contribute to a fulfilling life. The warmth of human connection and the ability to just be can sometimes outweigh the material comforts of a wealthier society. Story 10. A criminal defense lawyer shared that despite their current job being about fixing other people's problems, their favorite past job was as a dishwasher. There was something inherently relaxing about washing dishes, a task that might seem mundane or undesirable to many. It offered a break from the high-pressure environment of the courtroom and the constant demands of their profession. Another user echoed this sentiment, mentioning their experience in the hospitality industry where they found joy in working the dish pit. It was a place where everyone, from cooks to servers and bartenders, would come together and take turns doing dishes. This shared experience promoted a unique sense of teamwork and camaraderie, making it a surprisingly enjoyable part of the job. It shows that sometimes the most rewarding work isn't glamorous, but rather the simple tasks that bring a sense of peace and community. Story 11. A lunch lady shared her love for her job, highlighting how it gave her more exercise than most people get in a day, along with paid breaks and summers off. Her fiance worked in IT and tried to convince her to join his field, but she couldn't imagine leaving her current role. She spoke about how every day was different, how the kids made her laugh, and how she loved the freedom to decorate the kitchen with things like Halloween decorations. It was clear that the joy and fulfillment she found in her job went beyond just the physical activity and benefits. It was about the small, everyday interactions that made her feel connected and appreciated. This story serves as a reminder that job satisfaction isn't just about the pay or prestige, but often about the joy we find in the day-to-day experiences and the people we encounter. Story 12. The concept of working in a bookstore or library appealed to many. One user shared their dream of owning an old bookstore, being surrounded by books all day, and not worrying about whether anything sold. They imagined a life spent reading and talking to people about books, a simple yet fulfilling existence. Another user related, saying they used to volunteer at an old bookstore and loved being in that environment. They spoke of the calm calming effect of being around books, and how the bookstore owner, despite being a grumpy old man, had a kind heart and would remember what people liked. The bookstore community, in their experience, was full of genuine and thoughtful individuals who made a lasting impression. These reflections highlight the idea that fulfillment can often be found in the quiet, steady rhythm of working in a place that aligns with one's passions and interests.